Hi, this is Abul Hussain coming to you direct from London, the United Kingdom, and welcome to another episode of the SMMA Mastermind podcast, where we talk about how you can start or scale your digital marketing agency. Now, if you are watching this episode outside of our Facebook group, make sure to find the link above or below this video, or go to smmamastermind.com, especially if you are in the agency community. Now, with that out of the way, I have a very special guest joining me all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. Now, I didn't pick it up in her accent. Maybe you will. Her name is Amber Jones, and she is the CEO of Social Gourmet. Amber, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for joining me. Now, for the people who might be watching, and we have an international audience who don't know, I suppose, who you are, how about a little bit of an introduction?
Awesome. So just a little short, because I can talk forever.
Honestly, right? The longer the story, the better it is.
Yes, so I do have a story about how I kind of came about and everything. So I'm a first generation grad student for college. None of my family members went to a four-year university. And so with that, I was kind of going in blinded. So I didn't really know the plans or like what I really wanted to do. I just knew I was super creative. So of course I started with a mass comm major. So that was my forte. So while like in my freshman year, I kind of been hearing a lot of like just little comments from my friends and family. And they're like, you're not going to make any money with mass communication. Like, you're not going to be, like, a little discouraging, but they were like looking out for me too, because they wasn't aware of, the opportunities. So I let it get to me and I switched my major to education because I love children. So long story short, I ended up graduating and noticing that wasn't my passion for real. Like that teaching was not for me. And I began to get a little depressed and I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, I know I have a purpose on this earth. Like, I know it's something I'm supposed to do. So I started to think back to my freshman year when I was a mass communication major. I actually ran a couple of students that was on campus. They had businesses and I ran their social media platforms. But at the time, because it was 2015, that really wasn't a big thing. Like a lot of people didn't have that as a service because social media was it was around, but it wasn't a job. And so I was like, I got paid for that my freshman year. And I'm pretty sure if I make some strategies up, we can get paid for that now. And so I started in November of 2019 and created the Social Gourmet. And it just started off as only social media management at first. And maybe 2 months into it, I realized that I was as a business owner, because I have a nonprofit as well, so I kind of know, the ins and outs of business. I was like, there's so many services just other than social media management that people would need. And so from there, I was like, okay, well, what kind of services can I add to make this very accessible and easy and pretty much be like a one-stop shop for all business owners? So we literally offer all services. I'm talking about ad campaigns. We do social media management, as I mentioned earlier. We do photography, videography, graphic design, web design, email marketing. We try to make sure we cover as much as we can to make it a little bit easier for the client and stuff. So that's pretty much my little rundown, and I loved it ever since. I just super excited to kind of grow and experience more.
That's awesome. That's an absolutely awesome story. And like yourself, I was the first person from my family to go to university, so congratulations on that.
Yay!
you need to kind of pave the way for others. And it's a great way that you've come around to opening your agency, Social Gourmet. So kind of, when you are working with your clients, what are you actually doing in terms of managing their social media presence?
So the first thing that I do is I do a screening, and it's a personal thing because I want to make sure that if I'm going to be creating content and creating copy and everything for this client, I need to sound like the brand and live the brand type stuff. So what I do is I really kind of Insta stalk or Facebook stalk them, and I go through just different stuff that they verbiage and words that they use and kind of document everything. Kind of look at some color schemes and kind of see some areas of improvement that they probably can need to add or anything like that. And then from there we start to kind of assess okay, well, this is what I found, the hashtag are not being used and I feel like you're missing an area of opportunity, because that's free marketing right there. And then I kind of try to put everything together in one package and kind of help them create the best package that's best for them and their company.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So essentially you're kind of trying to work out their brand guidelines, their tone of voice, that kind of stuff, even when they don't know they actually probably have a brand guideline that
Hmm.
following. So in terms of using hashtags, how do you identify the right hashtags to use? And are they as useful as they were a couple of years ago?
I would say yes. Now it becomes, to me personally, from experience, I think it becomes a little bit scammy where you can get some people who tries to use the hashtags and like they start, sending those weird messages to you. But for the overall experience, if I don't use hashtags at all, my engagement is not as high and I don't have a wider range of exposure on the page. And so what I do is I use a app and a website called later.com. And they have, if you pay for, I think it's the basic package, it's only like $7 a month. And it basically does, like, you can schedule everything, but in addition to that, the analytics, they pull solely the hashtags and they'll give you the numbers. So like, say if you ran a campaign for like a month and you wanted to check, the numbers for the hashtags that you're using, you'll check them and say like, okay, well, these 10 hashtags, they got a lot of clicks. These 10 didn't. So we're going to take that out and change them with new ones and try this one and see what happens. And so that's pretty much how I kind of assess everything and kind of, bring everything to fruition.
That's an awesome tip there with this $7 tool that anybody can really kind of, I suppose, afford, especially if you are a business owner. Now, does that give you insights on only Instagram, or is it covering Facebook? Because I know Facebook is trying to move more towards this hashtag ecosystem.
Yes. So on the Facebook analytics, later doesn't really, to me, I don't know if it's something that's on my end, but it doesn't pop up. It's something that's glitching. It's supposed to be available in the system because you can schedule with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I think Pinterest, I believe. But I didn't see one in there to kind of analyze that hashtag data, but knowing that Facebook and Instagram are connected, I pretty much use those same hashtags and test them out through the Instagram.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because I think with other social listening tools, you have the same issue with Facebook because it's a closed off platform. So, privacy settings and all of that. And sometimes the tools cannot scrape the profiles to really pick up on the hashtag. So I've had this issue with Facebook on other tools as well. So in terms of kind of creating content for your clients, scheduling and all of that, how much of that do you do through your agency?
A lot. Scheduling is very important too. So the good thing about later.com is they allow you to know the peak hours. And it breaks it down. Like sometimes it'll tell you, like on Instagram, you go to insights, it'll have a little bit of, numbers there. But it breaks it down per week. So like say if this day that you're on here, so this week, this time, this how many people's on your actual, page. And so what we do is I start off at a general time, depending on the business, usually either midday or early mornings when they're first starting to kind of test it out. And then once I'm able to collect a little bit of data from later, then I'm able to kind of look like, okay, well, we're going to change and try this time. If it's not working, we'll switch it the next week and then kind of move from there. But we keep an eye on our analytics and be able to kind of, make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because obviously a lot of people don't understand what you don't track, you can't improve. People are quite ad hoc with this. So when you're kind of coming up with content ideas, where do you find the inspiration?
It's weird. It's in my head. So it depends. So I'm very creative. Like my mind is a weird place, but I have to be inspired too. So sometimes if it's something like, say if the client's asking for something really specific, then I would go to like Google and I would say like, okay, if they're like a restaurant, I'll be like, outlines for like restaurants. And which is really hard to find, honestly, because all of them kind of look weird. But even from there, if I kind of see like a couple of designs, and usually they're okay, and I'm like, oh, well, I can use this piece, and then I can make it my own or whatever. So I kind of get inspiration from there, and then just from myself, just kind of creating, because we're still small, so I'm pretty much the main designer that we have right now. So, trying to bounce ideas off of the internet and myself.
Right. Okay. So do you have like the business owner saying, these are the messages I want to put out this week, or do they leave that all to you?
Yes and no. So some of my clients are very lenient. Like they are like, do whatever you got to do. I don't care. Like as long as we, get the clients or whatever. And then we have those clients that are like super hands-on. So we created this thing where we meet and we have weekly check-ins with them. It's optional. They don't have to do it, but I think it's very beneficial to have. And so this is the time where if they have something going on that week, or if they have something that they want to add to the outline, they can tell me and let me know then. That way the next upcoming week, we don't have that same problem, or we don't, we make sure we include everything that they need to include. But for the most part, like how I set it up is because the outlines are on a monthly schedule. And I do everything a month in advance. And so what I do is I create all the content, the hashtags, the captions, and I get them scheduled maybe 4 to 5 days before, it starts. And I allow them that time to go in there and check and make sure, everything is right. If they wanted to add anything, they can add little notes or whatever. But that's how we kind of pretty much keep up with like their vision and my vision, kind of put them together.
And are you like putting out a post once a day, every single day of the month?
It depends. So I have 2 clients that has every day. And then I have some clients that do 3 days a week, 5 days a week. It just depends on what they ask and like what package they have, excuse me. So it just really depends on that.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of your clients' expectations, what do they expect from an agency essentially for the money they pay you?
Yeah. So what I've learned is that obviously people want to make money. But with social media management, I can't guarantee like, currency, because it's not an ad campaign. So what I do is I just allow them to see the results, because I have clients where they didn't post at all. And then I end up tripling, times 4 their money and their income just from posting, because they had good content. They just never posted. And so it's kind of like the trial and error type thing, but most people, they expect money. Some people expect, like the bigger clients that I have, they're more so like, make sure it's posted on time, make sure we get these articles out, make sure we're promoting and getting the content, rather than kind of focus on the monetary. But the smaller businesses are more so focused on what type of income does this bring me versus maybe like a medium size or like a startup funded business. They're a little bit more content.
Yeah, so for a business that wants to try to track income, because obviously, my background is in paid advertising. I love to see organic, but it's a lot of work for my liking. And it's very easy to show, $1 out and $1 in. How do you kind of do that through organic channels?
It's difficult, honestly, because when I started, I only had like 4 clients. And I was having a huge problem with, I kept telling them like, okay, well, you started in January, so it's March. Send me, from January to March, how much did it increase on average? Like trying to figure out the average number or anything. But I was having issues getting that information from them at first. But finally, got that figured out. And then once we kind of got like the data from like my other clients, because I knew in my heart that it was working, but I couldn't see it, because I don't have access to like their funds. And so you really just got to ask. You really have to ask them to provide. I created an Excel sheet where each week when we do our weekly meetings, it has all of their analytics on there per week. And then at the bottom of it, it also asks for stuff such as like their email list count, how much did they bring in this week, how much, and then that way now I'm able to actually see, the revenue being pulled in versus like from the beginning. And so that kind of keeps us on track a little bit more, being able to show them that.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of kind of managing the expectations, once you start working with clients, right, do you get some of them getting a bit, I suppose, frustrated at times? How do you handle the clients that essentially want to treat you as another employee?
Ooh, okay. Well, that's a great question. So I've had that situation a number of times, even outside of like my business. But how I learned, I'm really customer service savvy. I've been in customer service. I've been working since I was 15, and all of my jobs has been customer service jobs. It's ridiculous. So if anything, I know how to keep calm and get to the solution. So I don't really get frustrated as much. So if they get frustrated, it doesn't like annoy me, I guess. So what I try to do is simply give my best like knowledge or my best results or information that I have and show them the data, because data doesn't lie. So if you're looking at the numbers like, hey, you know, before me, your numbers look like this on your page and now they look like this. And that's the only thing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't, because somebody one time told me they didn't care about the numbers. They said, I don't care about the analytics. And I said, well, that's fine. I'm just letting you know it's there. So that's what we have to work with, you know, and that's fine. You'll get people like that where they're kind of like, you know, nervous, because especially if they're a small business and they're spending a certain amount of money, they want to make sure that, you know, they're getting what they need. But as long as you make sure you're documenting everything and you keep up with them numbers, it's fine. Like,
yeah. So kind of, you know, working with your clients and communicating with them, do you use any kind of special kind of tools like project management software, or do they like prefer face-to-face or like a weekly call or something like that?
So at first I was using Asana. And what I found is it's expensive because the free version, it's not like the privacy settings are weird. So like everybody can kind of pretty much see everybody's messages, which who wants to do that? And so I moved from Asana, and so now we just do the monthly check-ins, and I use like emails and sometimes text messages if it's like a quick check-in type thing. But I'm still in the looks for that, honestly. I'm still trying to find something that's like the best. It has an all-inclusive type thing.
Right. No, that makes sense. And in terms of your clients, how are you prospecting and picking up clients? Because a lot of people watching this, you know, they'll be in the same shoes that you were in, you know, a year or so ago. They want to do this, they want to pick up clients, but they've been struggling.
Really? Well, I would say when I first started, I was word of mouth, people that I knew. Like I was reaching out to people that I knew that had businesses, and I was like, hey, and I was real cheap too. So that worked. So I was like, hey, I'll do this for this price, but I wouldn't suggest, you know, that, because I became super overwhelmed because I was so cheap. I got a whole bunch of clients at one time, and I got super overwhelmed, and I was not getting compensated for the work that I was doing. So that didn't work. So I had to kind of change my strategy and raise my prices because I knew I was worth more and that I was putting more time into it. And so that's when I started doing, like, it's not really cold calling, but I guess like emailing and kind of sending those messages out on Instagram. Those are like my biggest like clients, and then like of course client referrals and things like that. But
that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned messaging on Instagram and emailing, because I mean, I speak to a lot of people on a daily basis that are trying emailing, that are trying reaching out to businesses through their pages on Instagram, on Facebook, and they seem to be going nowhere. So maybe you have stumbled upon a secret that you're not even aware that you've stumbled across. You know, I mean, how many messages do you need to send on Instagram? How many emails do you need to send before you get a positive response?
Okay, so here's my strategy. When I send a message, especially about my business, and I'm being like, it's still small, I send it from my personal page, and I put, you know, my business page in the message, like tag it. So that way they know it's like, I'm behind the brand, it's me. I don't send it from my business page because I feel like that's kind of scammy, and I don't want to, you know, they don't even know who they're talking to. They're probably not going to trust them or whatever the case. I want them to know that I'm a real person. And so on Instagram, I had to come up with like, what type of people am I going to be reaching out to? Like, who am I going to be reaching out to? Who do I want my client to be, and things like that. So at one point I wanted straight restaurant owners that were new, like new startup restaurants. So there's so many like Instagram pages nowadays in certain cities that has all of the restaurants on there. They'll post like new restaurants and things like that. Because most of my clients, they don't live in Nashville. Maybe only 2 of my clients live in Nashville. Everybody else lives all over. So I got all my clients off Instagram and emailing. So what I did is I would go onto the Instagram page and I would go and find like, oh, okay, Atlanta Eats or whatever the page is called. And it'll pop up all these like new businesses and they're like, support new businesses. And I'm like, I sure will. Send them a nice little message, you know, and then they'll be like, oh, okay. And my theory is, so I don't get discouraged, is the 10% rule. So if I send 60 messages, I might get 6 responses and I might get 1 response out of that 6 that says yes. That's how I feel about it. So you just got to be consistent and making sure that you're not, if you're sending a message and you notice that you sent 60 messages and you haven't got a liked message, nobody looked at it, or somebody looked at it but they didn't say anything, like it's just out of all those 60, nobody said anything, it's how you're wording it. Like, is what you're saying, is it creepy? Does it seem copy and paste? Or, you know, did you personalize it to them type stuff? So that's pretty much what I do.
Right.
There's probably a better way to do that. But
no, I mean, I think you've got it bang on that, you know, you need to have the right mindset, the 10% rule, as you said, and obviously you just need to kind of find the business owners, and you've mentioned that you are messaging from your personal account. So in that first interaction, what are you actually saying to them?
Let me pull up my message.
You don't need to go into word for word. Everyone's going to start copying it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They don't want to steal my... No, so I pretty much, I say their name or whatever the name of the company. And I'm like, hey, also, before I go into that, another good tip would be if you can find a business owner page. That's better than messaging the real page because I get more responses that way too. But anywho, so what I do is I'll put like, hey, whatever their name is, and I'll be like, I just wanted to jump on here real quick and introduce myself, and then I'll tell them like, hey, I have a digital marketing agency, and I do social media management or whatever service I see that they need. So like I kind of stalk them, you know how I stalk, go through, see what they need, and then I'll say like, hey, I see that you're not really, you know, engaging with your clients, or you're missing out on a lot of money, and I was wondering if you wanted to schedule time to chat or whatever. And so I put my at name and my website in there. Sometimes I don't put my website, but I definitely put my at name for the business page so they can kind of verify it's a real thing. And then people will respond. Like sometimes they'll respond and be like, oh, well, we're not looking for one right now, but we'll definitely keep you in mind. Those are still good because those are follow-ups. And then you follow up with them and make sure they, you know, do what they said they was going to do.
And then once they've responded, you know, how long does it take you to get them to sign up to become a client? You know, is it like they jump on a Zoom call or they jump on a phone call, you pitch them then and there, and then they say yes or no, or is it a bit more kind of long-winded than that?
So like we jump on, usually I either do like voice calls. Recently I've been doing a lot of Zoom just because of COVID. And once we get on the call, I pretty much let them tell me about their business and their, you know, things that maybe they see themselves in the future doing. And then once they introduce themselves, I go in and I say my piece about like, you know, my business and my ultimate goals and things like that. And then I ask them the question, is there any like areas of stuff that I just listed that you would be interested in knowing more about? And they'll give me those, you know, like, oh yeah, social media management, and I want to do some ad campaign. I want to see how much this is. And I'm like, okay, well, awesome. Well, as soon as I get off the call, I'm going to send you over a portfolio. I made a cute little portfolio with all my information in there. And then I send that over. And, you know, hey, if they want to do it, then they'll email me back, and then I'll kind of move the process on from there. And if they had any other questions, I always leave that open. Like, hey, like, text me or call me if you have any questions. I'm always available. And then, yeah, that's how it works.
And why do you think your current clients chose you over other potential competitors? Because I'm sure they get messages all the time from, you know, agencies, freelancers, people from the US, people from rest of the world, because, you know, we're now a global village thanks to social media. Do you know, I suppose, have you ever asked why they went with you over someone else?
I actually have not. I hear a lot of like compliments, you know, here and there, just about it. But I know how I am, and I know how, because like I said, like me working in customer service, I know how not to be pushy, and I never want to feel like I need, like, okay, we need you as a client, but I'm not going to beg you, and I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position to be like, well, you got to do this. Like, I'm not going to get on your nerves. I always make sure that I'm not too pushy when it comes to like, oh, well, you need to get an ad campaign. That's going to be an extra $1,000, and it's going to be this. I always make sure, like, I'll be like, well, what's feasible for you, and let's work with your budget, and let's see what we can do, you know, to help you best. I'm just super transparent and real, because I'm not like going to be desperate for these things. It'll be good to have, but not desperate. You know?
No, that's great. And then you also mentioned there that, you know, you negotiate and you find, I suppose, something that is a win-win situation for both of you. So then they can't really say no after you come to that agreement. Now, I know these interviews, they go so fast, and we have unfortunately come very close to the end. So I suppose on a final note, Amber, what is next for you and for Social Gourmet?
We are doing a revamp. It's going to be a new name, new business, everything that we're doing. It's going to be starting in 2021. I hate the name, honestly. So we're just going to switch it on over. So I'm excited for that. And then we're just trying to reach our goals by the end of the year to make sure that everything kind of runs smoothly. So more clients and just new names and new businesses.
No, that sounds absolutely awesome. And, you know, you seem to be on the right track. And I have, you know, I mean, I'd love to catch up with you at some point next year once you have done the relaunch and your roster of clients is bigger. Maybe you would have a couple of employees under you by then, because, you know, you are definitely, I mean, heading that way. On that note, Amber, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.